Hello and welcome to Ex Libris. I am Sarah and Steinbeck is here too, but I have to warn you, I gave him a haircut and it's a bit not good. It's not good. Come here. So we're just trying to cover it up a bit. Bad things have happened with the scissors and he's being a very brave boy. But he might be a little shy about being on camera today because all of the dogs at the dog park were laughing at his haircut. I'm sorry, baby. Good boy. Good boy. Also, for anyone who's been saying that Steinbeck is an angel and that you have fallen in love with him, you don't know him like I do. You don't know what he's like. You know, he doesn't even pay rent. Yesterday, he spent 20 minutes in the kitchen yelling because he found out where the vacuum cleaner lived and wanted to start a fight with it. Can you imagine living with that every day? What a nightmare. So today we're going to do something a little bit fun. I'm going to talk about some of the weirdest books I've ever read. However, one book I won't be talking about today is, for example, Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Like, everyone's like, oh my god, he's a cockroach, it's so weird. There is an actual subgenre known as weird fiction, which was popularized in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. A lot of this original weird fiction is kind of closer to what we would categorize today as science fiction, fantasy, horror, and speculative fiction. So a lot of the books that you'll be seeing on this list, you are likely to find on lists of weird fiction. But a lot of them are just books that I read and kind of went, okay. These are some of the books that I've read that I think are the weirdest books I've ever read. Let us begin with Great Apes by Will Self, first published in 1997. In this story, after a night of typical debauchery with a lot of substances, a middle-aged artist named Simon Dykes awakens to find that everyone in the world is a chimp. He is also unwilling to admit that he too is a chimp. Under the delusion that he is a human, Simon is admitted to a psychiatric hospital where an eminent psychiatrist, also a chimp, decides to study him and his delusions. So these chimps, they live in houses, they have jobs in banking and marketing, they wear clothes, they drive Volvos. But they also have a tendency to throw feces at each other when riled. Humans do exist, but sadly there are only 200,000 left in the wild, and the only other place to see humans is in the zoo. Like much of chimp society, there is a lot of polygamy, mutual hierarchical grooming, a lot of chimp sex. There's a lot of chimp sex in this book. Just be warned about the chimp sex. What makes this different, of course, is that it is working under the basis that Simon is in fact delusional, but his delusion is that he ever thought he was human at all. So this book kind of skews anthropology, the art world, human rights, animal rights, and it also satirizes masculinity and psychiatry and academics. Having said that though, it's also a fairly long book. Here we go. Here's my copy, my aged and yellowing copy. So it's just over 400 pages. And it's kind of questionable about whether what is essentially a one joke book one gimmick whether it actually had to be 400 pages, but it's weird. I liked it. I've never read anything quite like it. It is quite funny in parts. It makes you think about why, as humans, we do the things that we do. It does kind of skewer humanity. So that's my first pick. Will Self, Great Apes. My next pick is House Mother Normal by B.S. Johnson. This one is from 1971. B.S. Johnson was a fairly well-known experimental writer of the 60s and 70s. He didn't have a lot of success during his lifetime and sadly took his own life in 1973, after which he did kind of gain a certain level of cult success. With House Mother Normal, we have the narratives of 8 residents of a nursing home, plus the house mother, who is the person tasked with looking after them and organising their day. Each chapter is narrated by a single resident, all of whom are suffering from some degree of dementia or mental deterioration. And it's organised in order of most cognizant to the least cognizant. Each chapter goes over the same events throughout the day, usually in the same order and at the same place on the page. So because the patients are recounting the same events within the same time frame, we do start to see the different and unique ways in which they understand and interpret what is happening and what they are doing. By the time we get to the last 2 chapters, the pages are mostly blank, with just the occasional word or phrase kind of coming out of the ether. And it is actually surprisingly moving, because we are seeing these patients whose mental deterioration has progressed so far that they are quite lost in their own blank world. So other than the fact that the way that the book has been structured is quite unusual and quite experimental, especially to be having wide swaths of blank pages in the 1970s is quite ahead of its time. Where this book gets really weird is the last chapter, which is narrated by the house mother herself. Now, presumably, being that she's in charge and she's the one looking after all of these residents, you would think that she would be the sane one. But we learn that things are a lot stranger and darker than we could have even anticipated. What the residents describe, we previously have maybe just assumed were their delusions. But we soon find out that the activities that they've been doing throughout the day, dining, singing, making items that the house mother sells on the black market, they play pass the parcel, they play wheelchair jousting. We know that house mother is tyrannical and a little sadistic, but it's not until we get to that final chapter and we hear from the woman herself that we realize how incredibly weird this book really is. My next weird pick is Born by Jeff Vandermeer, possibly one of the vanguards of modern weird fiction. This book is a little bit more recent, from 2017. Born is set in a post-apocalyptic city overrun with biotech, including an immense building-sized flying bear named Maud. We don't know why or how Maud can fly. He just does. So we know that this unnamed city was a testing ground for a shadowy corporation known only as the Company. The Company still seems to be functioning in some form. There are toxic sludge pools, there are all kinds of blasted and toxic areas and strange creatures that have grown out of the muck that the company has created. Our protagonist is named Rachel. She's a scavenger who goes out into the city gathering up things that can be used from the company that can be repurposed. Many valuable items can be found in the fur of Maud, the floating bear. Whether he manages to pick these up on his fur as he's coming and going from the company, or whether these beings are issuing directly from his skin and appearing in his fur is not known. But our protagonist Rachel, on a scavenging mission through Maud's fur while he's sleeping, she finds a kind of little sea anemone type creature that she takes home and names Born. Born is kind of shaped vaguely like a vase with tentacles coming out the top, and he has a variable number of eyes. As time goes on, Born continues to grow. He continues to learn. He gains the power of speech. He is absorbing knowledge at an exponential rate, and he's also getting slowly bigger. The relationship between Born and Rachel kind of forms the heart of the novel, but at some point we start to realize that Born has some sinister qualities. What I love most about Jeff Vandermeer's writing is that while he is creating these very strange and sometimes grotesque and very weird environments and situations, because of the way that he writes and the way that he phrases things, we're not given a choice about believing it. This just is the reality. He renders the world completely believable and lived in, so that we don't question it at all. Why is there a floating bear the size of a building? It doesn't matter. It just is. That's what makes his writing so weird and wonderful. The absolute believability of everything that he writes about. And he also excels at writing about the radical transformation of life forms and environmental degradation. Our next book is In Watermelon Sugar by Richard Brautigan. This one is from 1968, so I think it makes it our oldest book on this list. In Watermelon Sugar is a post-apocalyptic, post-modernist American novel. Much like Born, this is also set in a post-apocalyptic world. In the aftermath of a fallen civilization, the people of this world seem to live in some kind of commune centered around a central meeting spot called I-Death. That's little I, capital Death. Like what happened to Steve Jobs. In this world, the people grow watermelons. The landscape is constantly in flux, and the sun has a different color every day, which also changes the color of the watermelons that grow. So each day has a different sun and a different color watermelon. They make most of their materials from watermelon sugar. They make bridges and clocks and windows all from watermelon sugar. They also burn watermelon sugar and trout oil for their fuel. There's a crisscross or lattice work of little rivers all around the place. There are luminescent tombs and statues of vegetables. So while all this sounds obviously very weird, what makes it kind of special is that it is told in deceptively simple prose. It makes the landscape that much more surreal. It has a real trippy, hallucinogenic quality. Probably because Richard Brautigan was on a lot of substances. It was the 60s after all. My next weird book is a book that I loved. The City and the City by China Miéville. This one is from 2009, and this book broke my brain. I've never had my mind so thoroughly scrambled by a book before. This absolutely broke me. It is brilliant. So it's about two separate cities that occupy the same geographical space but are perceived as two separate cities. Now, hearing this, I think a lot of people kind of go, sure, it's like a multiverse or different realities layered on top of each other. No, that's not what this is. This is metaphysical. So these cities exist in the same time, the same place, the same reality, but they are very, very different. This is so hard to explain. The residents of these two cities are taught from childhood to unsee the other parts of the other city. Each city has different architecture, slightly different fashion, different people. If something from one city finds itself in the other city, this is known as a breach. For example, if a car were to run off the road and end up in the other city, that would be a breach. There's also examples within the book of a smuggling operation from one side of the city to the other city, and this is also a breach. Anyone who is found to have breached is taken by a very secretive and shadowy organization, also known as breach. I'm not doing too well with this. Children and tourists are treated a little bit more leniently. Children are forgiven for a small breach, but if tourists breach, they are bundled out and banned from both cities forever. So within the same block, you might have certain buildings that belong to one city and others that belong to the other. The two cities are known as Basel and Ulcoma. So you might even have a street where one side of the road belongs to Ulcoma and the other to Basel. If you were from one of the cities and you wished to visit the other, you would need to go to the city hall. You'd have to go in, go through customs, maybe go through an education program. Then you would walk out the same door that you came in, but you would then be in the other city and you could not visit your home, even if it may be just a block away. It's metaphysical. Metaphysical. I'm just going to keep on saying metaphysical until it starts to mean something. So the only way that I can think of to like a recent example of what this may have been like is during COVID. Remember that? The uber gentrified suburb of Newtown, if you're not familiar with Newtown, is split down the middle by King Street, its main thoroughfare. On one side of King Street, Newtown belongs to the City of Sydney, LGA. The other fun thing about COVID is that we found out what an LGA was. And then the other side of King Street belongs to the Inner West Council. And during COVID, the City of Sydney Council went into a hard lockdown at one point, before most of the other LGAs did. City of Sydney went on a very hard lockdown. People could only leave their houses for exercise or for necessary reasons. The Inner West side of King Street was not in lockdown. So all the stores were open, shops were open, people were shopping, people were just, going out to the trendy cafes and boutique stores and just doing some shopping. Whereas on the other side of the road, all the shops are shut, no people, it was all very locked down. And I always thought that this sounded very much like The City in the City, where you've got these two very different realities existing in the same space. That's kind of how I see this situation. It does possibly refer to certain parts of our society where we willingly unsee things like, you know, refugee crises, homeless people, violence or substance abuse that we willingly unsee. I didn't even know if this explanation has meant anything. Like, I don't think I've explained this very well. It's reading this book is an experience. Like, it gets into your brain, and I think people saying that a book blew their mind is kind of hyperbole, and it never really means anything. But in this case, I feel like my mind was blown by this book, and it's so frustrating that I can't explain it properly. This is, I think, my favorite book on this entire list. I do love weird fiction, but this one takes the cake. My next pick is Crash by J.G. Ballard. This one is from 1973, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to describe it without being banned from YouTube forever. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about being demonetized because I don't have enough followers anyway. Good. Crash follows the story of a group of car crash fetishists. These are people who derive sexual pleasure from car crashes. This was a very uncomfortable read for me, very unpleasant to read. I can't say I enjoyed this book at all. It's very confronting. There is a lot of explicit content. It's kind of borderline pornographic. Actually, scratch the borderline. It's actually J.G. Ballard described it as the first pornographic book about technology. I mean, in a nutshell, this is a book about technology, sex, and death. But it is very explicit, at least anatomically correct. But there's only so much you can read about gear stick penetration before you just had enough. What this book does is, as it continues, the line between automobile and human breaks down. So the damage in the car crash that is done to the cars is also reflected in the serious injuries that the humans endure. This in itself is arousing to them. There is a lot of body horror as well. It's quite telling that a movie was made by David Cronenberg, who is kind of the godfather of cinematic body horror. The movie also was very controversial, as was the book. Even the New York Times described it as the most repulsive book they'd ever read. That gives you some indication. I am a really big fan of J.G. Ballard. I love Empire of the Sun, High Rise, The Drowned World. He's written some incredible books. This one really pushes the boundaries, which is his intention, and creating provocative content. I just am giving you a warning that this is a really difficult book to read. My penultimate pick is The Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman by Angela Carter from 1972. A lot of books from the 70s on this list. What was going on in the 70s? Oh, that's right, drugs. Lots and lots of drugs. Angela Carter is another author that I really love. I am an especially big fan of Nights at the Circus, Wise Children, The Bloody Chamber. These are all books that really blew me away. I loved them. Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman is one that I didn't enjoy quite so much, and it does have a lot to do with the weirdness. It is weird. It's probably one of her most surrealist novels, and she did set out deliberately to break through some kind of social boundary with this book. It does combine elements of surrealism, magical realism, eroticism, and philosophical content. So our protagonist is named Desidero. He is a bureau member within a city that is under attack from Dr. Hoffman and his desire machines, which are expanding the dimensions of time and space so that you get these mutating mirages or mass hallucinations within this city. Because the city has severed contact with the outside world, the citizens under attack from these desire machines, the hallucinations, the dreams, the mirages that they're experiencing, they soon begin to go mad. It becomes a hotbed for insanity and crime. And so Desidero has been tasked with hunting down Dr. Hoffman and assassinating him. What follows is a surrealist, picaresque romp as he goes from one strange experience and strange adventure to the next. Desidero is also in love with Dr. Hoffman's daughter, who is entirely made of glass. On Desidero's adventures, he encounters centaurs and acrobats and cannibals, all kinds of very strange and weird situations. So the book is very rich with these elements of surrealism and dreamlike sequences, and also kind of questions the nature of reality. What I think I really didn't like about this book, and this is a warning, a trigger warning, there is a lot of rape in this book, and I just could not get past that. It made me very uncomfortable. Angela Carter is known as a feminist writer, and I think a lot of what happens in this book victimizes women, but throughout that, their desire and their sense of sexuality and desire is never lessened. However, it still made me very uncomfortable that there is so much sexual assault in this book, and I just did not like it. If you haven't read Angela Carter before, this is not the place to start. Only go to this one if you've read her other works and you enjoyed them, or if you are really into surrealist writing. But I would definitely recommend Nights at the Circus or The Bloody Chamber or Wise Children before you even attempt this one. Considering the last two picks that I had were ones that I didn't especially like, let's finish the video with a book that I absolutely loved. Uzumaki by Junji Ito. This was on my list of favorite books from not last year but the year before, 2023. Was it? Is that right? I haven't read much manga, but I heard such amazing things about Junji Ito, and Uzumaki is kind of seen as his best work. But I've read a lot of his other books, and I can tell you they're almost all fantastic. Uzumaki is a horror manga set around a small Japanese town that is beset by spirals. The people start seeing and being pursued and haunted by spirals everywhere they look. And from there, things spiral out of control. I'll edit that out. People start seeing spirals everywhere. If you read this book, You will never look at snails or cinnamon rolls or fusilli pasta the same way ever again. You might even have to avoid them for the rest of your life. What is so fascinating and so wonderful about this book is that Junji Ito has taken something so banal as a spiral and made it horrifying. It's really quite an accomplishment. His imagination in terms of what you can do with a spiral is incredible. This is a book that you really can only experience because when describing it, there's no way that anyone could possibly think that a spiral, a pattern, could possibly be sinister in any way. But the weirdest and most wonderful things happen in this book. People start to turn into snails because of the constant pull of these spirals. Horrible things happen on the spiral staircase of a lighthouse. Bad things always happen in lighthouses. The people and the town itself start to transform under the pull of these spirals. Have some of the most hideous and weird and incredible artwork featured in this book. Wait. Oh my God, look at that. Look at that. It's so good. It's so good. So it is quite horrifying, but I love it so much. This was, I believe, my first manga. I haven't found anything else that I have enjoyed as much. I am currently going through all of Junji Ito's back catalogue because this book blew me away so much. It's probably my favorite graphic novel of all time. Yeah, I can't recommend this enough. Okay, that was 8 weird books that I have read, some of the weirdest. There are more. If you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more weird book picks, leave a message below because I do have more that I could mention. Weird. What is weird? I'm weird. Thank you once again, and stay weird.